Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello to those people driving in your car. Hello to those people walking the dog with me stuck in your ears. Hello to those people on the train or the bus or the ferry right now commuting to or from work. Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 152 for the 17th of September 2011. Richard Saunders here with you from a very warm Sydney, Australia. I think spring is here, or it's around the corner, or maybe it just went by. I don't know, but it's a lovely warm day today. Beautiful day. Lots of lovely clouds in the sky and some ducks on the duck pond. Took my nephew and niece out for a walk. And anyway, getting back to today's show, we have an interview with Mark Crislip from Qucakcast. Qucakcast is a fantastic podcast dedicated to ducks, quackery, all sorts of quackery. Now, I'll be including the links to Qucakcast on the show notes and in the newsletter, the weekly newsletter, free to subscribe. Just visit skepticzone.tv. Dr. Rachie caught up with Mark at TAM 9 in Las Vegas. The more the weeks go on, the more I think that woman only interviewed people. That's all she must have done when she went to TAM. That's it. I can't believe she had time to have dinner or have a crabby leg. Those crab legs at that casino, I tell you what. That's coming up at the top of the show. And after that, it's Maynard's spooky action. He asked the big questions. Why are skeptics unfunny? Yeah? You'll find out more when Maynard interviews Simon Taylor, the comedian from Melbourne, who was visiting Maynard's hometown of Newcastle in the week. Why are skeptics and free thinkers, atheists, humanists, etc., unfunny? Well, they're not, of course, but these topics are covered with Maynard. And to wrap up the show, Dr. Rachie reports on her quest, her mission to reform the TGA in this country, the Therapeutics Goods Administration, the people who look after our drugs, so to speak, and who keep an eye on dodgy advertising. But as we will find out, and as regular listeners to the Skeptic Zone and Dr. Rachie know already, they're next to useless. Find out more at the end of the show with Dr. Rachie Reports. Now, speaking of Maynard, which we were a moment ago, those people in Melbourne will be delighted because Maynard is heading your way together with Dr. Rachie, Iran Sergev and Joe Benamu to the fabulous Skeptic Camp. And if you Google Skeptic Camp Melbourne, you'll find out more details, and there'll be more details on this show coming up in the next few weeks. We're sending Maynard to his first Skeptic Camp. Now, you may remember last year Maynard did a fantastic job for us, reporting from TAM Australia, running around for days on end with his microphone, getting wonderful interviews. And we've decided, since he's does such a good job, we're going to sponsor Maynard to go to TAM Las Vegas, TAM 10 in Las Vegas. And you know what? We'd like to ask you to help. If you've never contributed to the Skeptic Zone before, let's do it this way. What I'd like you to do is go to skepticzone.tv, click the link for a weekly contribution of $1, and if you've never done it before, stay in there for just 1 month. That's it. Just a month. And then you can cancel, and fantastic. If enough people of you do that periodically, then I'm sure we can get together enough money to get Maynard over with us to enjoy TAM, Las Vegas, and bring you many, many hours of great reports, insights, and interviews. Why not, huh? Why not? This man works so hard for the Skeptic Zone, bringing you fabulous reports, as you'll hear today. Let's do that for him. He's a great bloke, and I just think that having Maynard in Las Vegas, it's a match made in heaven somehow. Let's see what we can do. Also, in the past week, It's come to my attention that the Rebel Sports outlet chain here in Australia are selling a new form of the magic band. Oh boy, how many of these are there? This one's called the NRG Titanium Ion Band. All sorts of medical claims. Listen, if you want to find out more about this band, and believe me, the Australian skeptics are onto this and we're going to be doing something about it, you can visit their Facebook page, in fact. If you go to Facebook and look for NRG TITANIUMION, so NRG Titanium Ion, you can see their Facebook page and read their outrageous medical claims about blood flow and free radicals and all sorts of things. Oh, dearie me. People really think that a rubber band with some great medical claims and trying to bamboozle people with science-sounding words is going to wash any more. They got another thing coming. And also, onto this, is our dear friend Dr. Stephen Novella from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Have a look at Science-Based Medicine blog, sciencebasedmedicine.org, and look for the entry called Pseudoscience Cells, where Dr. Novella just takes these bands apart. Oh boy, our work is never done. And neither is mine. As you listen to the Skeptic Zone, I'm going to run downstairs. I'm going to get some vanilla ice cream in a cup, a little bit of Hershey's chocolate, on top, teaspoon, beat it up a little bit, maybe a bit of whipped cream. Oh boy, I'm going to enjoy that, and I'll let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
At TAM 9 with the wonderful Dr. Mark Crislip. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. You, of course, are the author and presenter of the wonderful Qucakcast podcast, which is, of course, the sarcastic and pithy medical podcast that we all love.
Thank you.
And, of course, you are also the owner of the trademark The World Needs More, Mark Crislip.
Yes, I think so.
Which is why we've got you on the Skeptic Zone today.
I hope people understand that's meant sarcastically.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't listen to your podcast, you're right up front about what you call scam, not cam. And so what is that? What does that stand for?
Scams call supplements, complement, and alternative medicine.
Yeah.
And that was Peter Bowditch, did I pronounce it?
Oh, Peter Bowditch. Yeah.
I think he originated it. So
right.
I stole it from him.
Oh, I didn't know you stole it.
Yeah, I didn't originate it. I stole it from somebody, and I think it was Peter.
Okay.
So I'll give him credit.
So you're pretty much straight up and down about this stuff, aren't you? You don't mince words. Where it's necessary to say this is bullshit, you call it out, don't you?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to be honest with people. The House staff voted me attending most likely to tell it like it is. So
Really?
I think it's spread throughout my life.
Well, you are an infectious disease specialist. Yes. So what do you do day to day?
Day to day, I take care of patients in hospitals with weird or unusual infections. Mm-hmm. So weird pneumonias, heart valve infections, meningitis, AIDS, stuff like that. So
in terms of I suppose you would come across a lot of people that use cam or scam, as you say. Do you find that in your practice?
I ask every patient, but the majority don't beyond herbs and chiropractic and acupuncture. And it's very rare to find anybody who actually is. The people who are deep into that don't come in the hospital. It happens occasionally, but mostly it's casual use more than anything else.
So do you think it's that they don't use it or they don't tell you that they use it?
I ask. I think the only thing people lie routinely about is their taste in music, because they tell you about their sexual habits and their drug use, and I don't think they're going to hide it from me. Right,
because there have been studies done on this, and in particular, I recently did some research on CAM use in HIV, in HIV-positive patients, and some of the studies were showing that something like up to 49% of the people were not telling their doctors that they were taking CAM.
Yeah, but probably because they weren't being asked. Yeah. And when people are in the hospital, they're sick. Yeah. And so they don't hide anything for fear that they're going to hold something back that's important.
Yeah. Because one of the other statistics that I came across in a review was out of all the scam or CAM used by particularly HIV positive patients, one of the highest ones was prayer and then supplements. And one of the interesting things was people who were on HART, in highly active antiretroviral therapy, but also on supplements, if they started to feel better, they would attribute that to the supplements, not to the antiretroviral therapy.
Yeah, it's always the case. And, it always depends when you read those things how you define a scam, because I don't actually think of prayer as anything important.
Right, yeah. Because it doesn't have an effect, a physiological effect.
Maybe it makes you feel comfortable, but it's not going to interfere with your medications. It's not going to cause infections. It's not going to have side effects. It's not going to give you a stroke. So, prayer is as innocuous as Reiki. So those don't matter. People use them because they do absolutely nothing. I don't care if my patients take homeopathy. What's it going to do? Yeah. But herbs, I asked them specifically, you take any herbs, that sort of stuff. And I think they're always forthcoming.
So what, in the case of, for example, with HIV, there are herbs that can interact with antiretrovirals, aren't there? That can actually increase their effect or reduce their effect. So it is important to know if your patients are taking that, isn't it? Yeah,
there's a lot of drug especially the protease inhibitors, there's a lot of drug interactions. And so you have to know what people are on so you can manage their medications appropriately.
So does it frustrate you when you come across patients that are taking alternative medicines?
No, not really. I mean, I'm an asshole on the podcast, but in real life, it's my job to form a working relationship with everybody that comes their way. And since I'm the only person who does what I do in my hospital, I can't afford to alienate or piss off a patient because then they have no one else to go to. So, it's just part of the continuum of human behavior. It's like, this person does that, the next person does something, equally stupid. So it doesn't frustrate me. I get why having teenage children, I long ago gave up on being frustrated with human behavior. You hear that, Jeff, if you're listening?
We can edit that out. Or not.
I don't care what you do.
So, I know that you have in the past, you do write for Science-Based Medicine as well, the blog, which is also, Steve Novella also writes for that as well as David Gorski. You have addressed in the past issues put forth by the anti-vaccination movement. With respect to that, in your practice, have you seen a rise in any sort of vaccine-preventable diseases?
I have seen diseases that I have not seen before, or at least they've been reported in my community. I've seen an actual case of mumps, which surprised the heck out of me, because I'd never seen mumps. Measles, we've had small numbers in Portland, but they haven't. We try and keep measles out of the hospital because it is the most contagious disease. Well, second most contagious disease maybe known to man. So we don't try and bring them in if we can. So you sort of more hear about them because they're mostly outpatient. I'm 99% inpatient medicine. So, But yeah, measles, mumps, chickenpox is always there. Haven't seen a German measles in 25 years.
What about whooping cough?
Pertussis is an ongoing total pain in the neck because what happens is adults have it, they're not immunized, and then they come into the ER coughing and expose everybody. And it's more a problem in adults with chronic cough than it is in kids. Most pediatricians in the ERs are clued in that a coughing kid has pertussis, put them in isolation. But that's creeping up too. Portland's not as bad as some areas in the Northwest for anti-vaccine problems, though some of the schools evidently are quite high in the area.
Yeah, because recently at least in California, there were laws introduced that you have to demonstrate your children have been vaccinated now before they can go to a public school, because there has been, as you would be aware, an epidemic of whooping cough in California.
Yeah, a couple deaths too. Sad.
Yeah, I think 9 deaths at last count of kids under the age where they can actually be vaccinated.
Yeah.
So do you come across that in your practice? Do you come across patients that dispute vaccination and ask you and put forward some of the canards that I guess we're familiar with?
It's actually not so much in my practice, because I only deal with adults, but it's more in my real life, where I'm surprised that people don't want to have vaccines. I mean, the reason that we live to be 80 is flush toilets, clean water, and vaccinations. And if you read history, everybody used to die of infectious diseases that are preventable now. And this just boggles my mind that people will not vaccinate their kids or worry about it.
Can you speculate why people...
Fear. It comes down to fear. They're afraid their kids are going to get side effects or autism or some complication of the vaccine, and they don't know the fear that the plagues of the past used to cause. You know, polio used to devastate communities. Measles would devastate communities, shut whole communities down. It doesn't happen these days because of vaccination and herd immunity, but we're kind of creeping closer and closer to the edge where we may have a problem again.
Yeah.
And I have a child who starts college in 6 weeks, so I need the business. So don't vaccinate your children. I need the measles. I need the chicken pox. I need a good plague.
So you have addressed in the past, on your podcast, but also on the SBM blog, this whole internet meme called the 9 questions that physicians or scientists can't answer about vaccines. I just wanted to run through a couple of those because they're actually quite interesting. The one that particularly annoys me is the one about vaccines being injected into the bloodstream. Now, you find this all over anti-vaccination websites. That's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, most of them are in the muscle. It's not very much in it. I said, well, the muscle has a blood supply, but they're not injected into the bloodstream.
But it sounds scary to say that, doesn't it? Because it makes it sound scarier to say it's injected into the bloodstream than it is to say it's injected into your...
Yeah, it is more scary. Now, interestingly, there was a study recently where they took like 120 people and they had them brush and floss and they checked their blood for bacteria. And it was found in 80 of the about 120 people. So you want to be scared. I wouldn't worry about a vaccine. You really shouldn't brush your teeth. I mean, you get bacteremia, you get stuff in your blood all the time. It's the human condition to have stuff in your bloodstream all the time. That's why you have an immune system. And the trivial amounts of stuff you get from an intramuscular vaccine are nothing.
The other thing that they talk about is that infectious diseases haven't declined because of vaccines. It's been the increase in sanitation and, I think, more sunshine and unicorn farts or something. But you...
Oh, I thought it was unicorn tears that were protected.
Oh, no, it's unicorn
because
farts.
Steve Jobs makes all the Apple products with unicorn tears, and that's why they're so special.
Oh.
But I know it's unicorn farts.
Well, unicorns fart rainbows. Didn't you know that?
No. I did not know that. Oh, I've already forgot the question.
The question was that the anti-vaxxers say that vaccines have not reduced CVDs.
Everything that has improved the quality and decreased infection is multifactorial. So there's no single thing that decreases infections in the community. It's been flush toilets. It's been good nutrition. It's been understanding the epidemiology of the disease. But it's also been vaccination. And anytime you want to make an impact on an infectious disease, there's never a single answer. There are multiple answers. In our own hospital systems, we've done multiple things to decrease hospital infections, and we've decreased our hospital infections, I estimate like 750 in the last 2 years. But it wasn't a thing, it was multiple things. I mean, it's just like saying that, you're only going to get nutrition by eating nothing but broccoli. I mean, you're going to get good nutrition by eating lots of different things to stay healthy. It's a multifactorial intervention. And vaccines are part of a multifactorial intervention that's driven infections down. But as they prove, when they have places where people are vaccinated, when they're exposed, they get the disease.
But they also like to massage the statistics, or actually just really cherry pick them, because they tend to only include deaths from vaccine preventable diseases as opposed to chronic long-term effects. So they'll say the deaths haven't reduced that much, but then you also have to consider that you're not looking at long-term problems and side effects. So, for example, with pertussis, if you get that as a child, you can then possibly get a cough every 12 months for a long time. It's not just that infection period and that's the end of that illness, is it? Yeah, and I'm always amazed at how people trivialize human suffering. It's not just deaths, it's, other things are unchanged. Go on the internet and find videos of kids with pertussis.
I mean, it's horrible to watch these kids try and cough themselves to death. I mean, these are awful illnesses they're horrible. And it's hard to trivialize human suffering that's preventable with minimal to zero side effects. You know, my children really chafed about their seatbelts. It went across their neck, and on long drives, I got these little red marks, and I've never been in an accident, so why would I have my kids wear seatbelts?
That's their logic.
I know, it's just, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the morbidity of a vaccine is so much less than the morbidity of the disease.
Yeah, the risk associated with the side effects is so much smaller and so that's something else they can't interpret is the risk-benefit ratio. But you're a doctor, so clearly you're paid by Big Pharma, first of all.
I wish.
You're a shill, Mark.
Yeah.
Obviously.
You know, if I have accepted one thing in 30 years from a pharmaceutical company. Now, I don't eat the pizza at conferences. I don't take the books. I don't go to... I don't take the pens. I don't talk to pharmacy reps. But about 15 years ago, the maker of Unison they quit using the drug because of me, and so he left the hospital, and he sent me a Fleet Cinema with a Unison sticker on it. And the Fleet Cinema, I always show at the start of my talks, proudly sits on my desk. So that's the only thing I've ever taken, ever, from a pharmaceutical company. Interestingly, somebody sent an email to the head of my hospital system complaining about me, and it was anonymous. But you know, when you print out something off the computer, it gives you the folder it's printed from, C-hard drive / the folder. And it was curious that the name of the folder it was printed from was also the name of the local levofloxacin rep. So she wasn't real bright that way. But no, I've never taken anything from Big Pharma, ever. And I'd like to. And if there's someone from Big Pharma listening, I would like it to be on your payroll. As I keep saying, my kid starts college.
What is the evidence for long-term safety and efficacy? Because we haven't done double-blind, randomised controlled trials where we've put kids in a room and given them pertussis and then put a bunch in another room and given them a vaccine, then given them pertussis.
Yeah, that gets to be an interesting ethical question as to how you can, how much you can study something in a placebo-controlled trial when you have efficacy. And if you have a preponderance of data, both historical and short-term, that drugs are safe and effective, it becomes unethical to do just that study, at least outside of... what's it called when you bring up Nazis? What is
Godwin's Law.
Yeah. Time for Godwin's Law. Godwin's Law. You can only do that in concentration camps. I mean, really.
Well, not exactly. Because there was that syphilis study in 1952, which only ceased in 1974.
Yeah, Tuskegee is one of the great black eyes in medicine. But it would be unethical to do that in this day and age. And when you follow cohorts of kids long term, you don't find long-term side effects from vaccinations. And from a plausibility reason, there would be no reason to suspect it in the vast majority of the vaccines because there's really almost nothing in them but a wee bit of protein and carbohydrate to let the immune system know what the bug looks like. On the other hand, as vaccinations gone up, we've had more Republicans elected to the United States, so maybe there's...
So vaccination caused Republicans. Yeah. But on a serious note, there is evidence that vaccines have long-term safety and efficacy, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, if you follow children, people who get vaccines long-term, there's no increased problems in kids who get vaccines. So that's the best you can do. And that's the ethical thing you can do. I like the Polish study that actually this year that showed that kids who stuck with the MMR schedule had less autism than those that stretched it out or didn't get it. And I thought that was an intriguing study.
So how do you respond to people saying that, polio hasn't really, it hasn't disappeared, but it hasn't really reduced. They just renamed it so that we wouldn't think it's around anymore.
I thought that was smallpox. Smallpox is now chickenpox.
Oh, is it?
That's the one I've heard.
Okay.
And it's interesting because that is the greatest transmogrification of all time because it completely changes genome from 100%.
Right.
That's what's really weird. Is that, you you can stretch out and read the entire genetic code of these viruses, and to say that they just renamed it is just profoundly weird.
The guy who wrote these 9 questions is a naturopath, is that correct?
Yeah, but you know what ND stands for?
Not a doctor.
Correct.
So let's just change the subject for a moment. Let's talk a little bit about placebo, because myself and you are on a panel on Saturday talking about placebo medicine.
The only thing the placebo effect is people convincing themselves they're better when they're not. There is no placebo effect. It's a medical myth for almost the entire part, because when you look, that it's only with subjective outcomes where you see a placebo effect. And subjective outcomes can't be trusted, because when people are in studies, they want to be of benefit. They want to help. It's the Stockholm effect. People take on the characteristics of their kidnappers. Yeah, I mean, that's what being in a study is like. You want to please your doctor. You want to help them. They're going to tell them what they want to hear. It's like, that's interesting, but I'd like to see a non-subjective endpoint that says that there was actually what they said is true. As I remember, there was an acupuncture study for chemo where they had people keep a diary. They got chemo, they kept the diary of their nausea and vomiting. And they got acupuncture, and they kept a diary of their nausea and vomiting. And they all said, this is right. They all said that they got better with the acupuncture. When you look at their diaries, no change. My other favorite is especially now I'm in my 50s, is prostatic hypertrophy. So you get a big prostate and you can't pee. So they put people on saw palmetto versus placebo. Both groups said that they got better, but they were measuring how hard they could pee. You got an objective endpoint. Nobody changed their urodynamics. And so if somebody tells you that they're better, are they? Well, that's an interesting philosophical question. My other favorite is everyone's seen Penn and Teller's Bullshit, and the magnet one, where they bend a downspout into the shape of a magnet, and they paint it like a magnet, and they hold it up to this lady's arthritic hand, and she goes, yeah, it's better. People tell you what you want to hear. I don't think there's any placebo effect whatsoever. I mean, there's absolutely no effect. I don't think it does anything.
I mean, when it comes to things like this, is the classic one is, well, and homeopaths use this a lot, but it works on animals and children, therefore it's real. But that is really the placebo effect on the person observing the animal or the child, isn't it? Yeah, I forget. There's a nice article on placebo effect in animals on SBM. I'm blanking on the guy's name who wrote it. He's a veterinarian. Oh, yeah. That's an excellent review. But again, you're getting it fed through the lens, as it were, of the dog owner or the parent, and how they report it. You like to have an objective endpoint. As Feynman said, the whole purpose of studies is to try not to fool yourself. And most people are spending their time fooling themselves. Is there any benefit in sort of trying to harness these effects to perhaps improve the outcomes of your patients, even if that little additional bit is placebo? That's an interesting... I feel like Bill Clinton. It all depends on what the definition of is. It all depends on how you define what you consider to be a placebo intervention. I mean, patient-physician interactions is a complex relationship. And I know when I walk into a patient's room that how I say things and what I say and how I present it has a lot of power to motivate them or demotivate them, to get them to up and about and moving or not. And you can't ever lie to patients. That is verboten. I mean, but there's a lot of ways you can tell the truth. You can tell them you have a 50% chance of failing or a 50% chance of getting better. I'm going to tell them you got a 50% chance of getting better. If I think the patient's looking better, I always tell them, you're looking good today. There's someone there. You look good. Get up and start walking. You'll get out of here soon. I try to be enthusiastic. I upbeat with the patients as appropriate. And is that a placebo effect? Probably. Am I harnessing the patient's belief in me and the system and the interaction to get them better? Yeah, you got to do that sort of stuff. But you can't give someone a pill and say you're going to get better when you take this when it's going to do nothing. And pain is a unique thing because there's a huge, in the biz we call it a supratentorial component. There's a big
psychological, emotional component with pain. And if you've ever had pain, and I've had a lot in my day, it hurts more at 11 at night when you're lying in bed than it does at 11 in the afternoon when you're busy at work. If you're tired, you hurt more than if you're not tired. And there's a lot of psychological overlay to pain that makes it more difficult to interpret. So yeah, you can tell someone that you're going to get placebo and your pain's going to get better, and I believe that because you're going to relieve the psychological overlay to the pain, which makes it very, clinically it's always weird. You'll see somebody who is passing a kidney stone, which has to be the worst pain ever. Sorry to all the women out there who say it's childbirth. Childbirth is number 2. I've not passed a kidney stone. I'm not past a child.
Email him, not me.
Yeah, but a kidney stone just looks worse. And I would love to hear from anybody that's both passed a kidney stone and had a child. Let's see what they say. But who just say, I don't need anything. And other people who stub their toe and just act like, can I have some Dilaudid for it? I mean, the ability for people to deal with pain is interesting in its variety. So there's a huge psychological overlay. And you get secondary gain from it. Some people like narcotics, so they'll play up the pain for the narcotics.
So now, I just want to finish up by asking you a question about, on the topic of antidepressants, and they cop a lot of criticism for purely being based on placebo, or for having a large amount of their effect is placebo. But when we're talking about subjective things, and I guess depression is not necessarily a psychological illness in all cases. I mean, there is some evidence of biochemical imbalances. But Big Pharma, I often criticise for that because, there's some evidence to say up to 40 to 60% of that effect is placebo. But we can't really avoid that when it comes to that kind of issue, can we?
No, there's always going to, with illnesses with a psychological component, and depression is one of those. And you're going to get those effects. And the natural history of disease. All of us, 3 most dangerous words in medicine are in my experience, but we all have the experience of people whose lives have been turned around rapidly by antidepressants who had refractory depression it's a horrible disease for those that suffer from it. Mm-hmm. And, studies are never as good as when they're published. Anybody who's a clinician knows that. I mean, they talk about, there's been a brouhaha lately about the decline effect. But if you practice medicine, you realize, my rule of thumb is always that drugs are only half as good as the published studies. In the real world, you don't have all the bias and the patient selection and all the things that go into developing a perfect trial. In the real world, everything works about half as good as the published stuff. And so when you think about that, for most scams, they have barely any effect at all. So if they're half as good as barely, they're probably sliding over into the negative in terms of any effect they're going to have on people. They're probably causing disease rather than treating it.
Yeah, that's not true, because my nana, who lives down the road from my friend, told my dog's brother that it works, therefore it works.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, it's a testimonial right there for you, Mark Crislip.
Yeah. Talking dogs always. Talking dogs and unicorn farts.
So you learned something today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thanks very much for joining us today on the Skeptic Zone, and I look forward to the panel on Saturday. Where can our listeners find out more about you and your podcast?
My website is moremark.squarespace.com. And then my podcasts are on, 3 of them are on iTunes, and then I write for Science-Based Medicine, and I'm the infectious disease blogger for Medscape. Hey, does that make me a shill if I write for Medscape?
Oh, I don't know who funds Medscape. Isn't that National Institute of Health?
No, it's ads.
It's ads.
Oh, God, I'm a shill. I'm a shill. Oh.
Mark Crislip is officially a shill.
Oh, my God. Oh. It's secondhand shilling, but I'm a shill nonetheless. Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to go out and kill myself tonight.
Please don't kill yourself. Go to the opening function of TAM and have some big pharma shill beers.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Hi, This is Carrie Poppy.
I'm Ross Blotcher.
Oh, hey, Ross.
Hey, we're from a podcast called
Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
We find out what happens when you show up and ask questions.
We've hung out with the Kabbalists.
The Mormons.
We've gone and gotten ear candles.
Gone to the Sikhs.
We show up so you don't have to.
So find out where we're going next.
We'll even have special episodes where we have famous guests like Brian Dalton from Mr. Deity.
You heard that awesome theme music? He wrote that.
You should come visit us at onopodcast.com or
facebook.com/onrack.
What the hell's OnRack, Ross?
ONRAC.
Oh no, Ross and Carrie.
That's our show.
That's so smart. Come join us.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Maynard here, reporting for the Skeptic Zone tonight because I want to find out from two of the performers that are about to go on, why do you think skeptics and atheists get such a bad rap for not being party people and being dull, which is part of the reason they wanted to put this on tonight? Matt, you first, mate, as well.
I think it's probably just because there's not an awful lot of exposure to atheism in mainstream culture, so it's only a fairly narrow-minded, stereotypical view that would create that. I think if you actually saw what was happening in here, you'd see a lot of people enjoying themselves. So that just comes from a lack of awareness, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, they tend to get a reputation around the campus as being the nerds for some reason, although most of them don't do the sciences. There's just as many in the arts.
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't know that much about that. I've never been a student, so that's probably not my place to comment on it, but I don't know. I've got mates who are nerds and they're hilarious, so I don't see what being intelligent and articulate has to do with having fun.
And, of course, you're the warm-up act, so what sort of, you've got Simon here. Now, you obviously can't do too good, or else you're going to make Simon look bad. So what's going through your head right now, minutes before the crucial crossing onto the threshold of the stage?
Absolutely nothing. I try not to think before I go on stage. It's just go out and do it and enjoy it.
And of course, what style of comedy will you be doing tonight? Unfortunately, I haven't heard you perform before, so...
I would describe myself as a surrealist/absurdist. It's out there.
So does that mean a lot of stuff free wheels on stage in your head? A lot of stuff is made up on stage?
It depends on the audience. If people are willing to interact with me, I'm always happy to banter back. But if every now and then you get a crowd who just wants to sit and hear punchlines, and I'm happy to give them to them. So we'll just see what happens, I suppose.
We'll have a good time up there.
Cheers, mate.
I'll look at the other non-nervous looking person. Normally I'm as nervous as hell before I go on and do anything. So, Simon, why are you so relaxed? And he's relaxed too. You guys on opium or something? What's happening here?
No, we're just hanging out. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and someone said, "Do you get stage fright?" I go, "No, I get stage cravings." Most of my life is dedicated to trying to get more stage time. So this is what I'm about. So I'm enjoying the anticipation, and when I'm up there, I'm enjoying it as well.
Now, look, you're obviously a funny guy, a guy who is a comedian, and people said, "Oh, there's an atheist, skeptical comic coming." I think that's great, but I mean, do you really need those labels? I mean, to me, you just seem like a really interesting guy who does great wordplay from your website.
Well, the labels can be helpful in one sense, because when I was first finding my voices as far as expressing my beliefs and my thoughts when I was about 18, 19, it was important for me to know that they were validated by a body of people like skeptics and atheists. So that did help. But beyond that, I just wanted to be positive about what I do like and what I do believe in, and that's I'm a big psychology person. So what I want to see is I want to see comedy about psychology and about people and about interesting things. So I write the show that I would want to see. And that's just my philosophy, that if I write what I would want to see, hopefully there's an audience out there who does too. And generally that sort of overlaps with the atheist societies and the skeptic societies.
Now, your new show is called 10 Things I Know About You, is that correct?
That is correct.
Why only 10? I mean, anything to do with psychology will tell you that you open the book of psychological illnesses, there's a lot more than 10.
Sure is, and
there's a lot more coming. What's my favourite new one?
orthorexia nervosa. That's my favourite new one. That's the unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. That means you'll eat a carrot, and if you don't take that carrot to work, you will eat nothing until you get home, except maybe you'll eat 5 meat pies on the way home because you didn't take the carrot.
The irony is beautiful. There are way more than 10 things, but when you want to package a show, and it's a 50-minute show for Fringe Festival, you package a show and you say, what are my 10 highlights and what am I most excited about? And then if you sort of plant that seed with the audience, then they'll go out and they'll get excited too, and they'll go explore the millions of exciting things that the mind holds.
Now, being this for a skeptical podcast, is there any kind of woo? Is there any kind of illogic that annoys you the most? For some people, it's astrology. Of course, a lot of people hate the anti-vaxxers, of course. What's the one that really annoys you the most?
Well, I don't actually focus on them. I suppose when I was 18 and 19, it was just everything. It was just the style of thinking of believing without a good reason. That approach to thinking was something that annoyed me. But now I just focus my energy on the things that are positive to me, on learning and discovery. And I think there's an excitement of that comes from exploration and trying to understand the world and understand yourself. So that's where my focus lies.
And why do you think skeptics are almost considered crackpots with evidence? A lot of people feel about them that way because they seem like they're a bit of weird people you don't want to talk to because they have an agenda, and just because they feel they've got evidence, they're strange.
Well, it's always reacting to the most extreme in that group. So the most extreme in that group will be very adamant about, in every situation, state all the facts and always refer to evidence. But, I mean, that is just the sensationalization of that group. But the bigger the group is, the more diversity there is in it. And a lot of people have been signing up tonight. I've noticed people, when they're buying tickets, are signed up, and they're as diverse as they get. So, as you said earlier, they're not necessarily just science students. They're, economics students and commerce students and art students, because if you appreciate a style of thought, then you can appreciate what skeptics and atheists are about.
And they seem like a bunch of people you wouldn't mind working to either. It looks like they're going to be a fun crowd tonight.
I think so, yeah. I'm actually quite excited as I hear the buzz slowly rise in the room. So, looking forward to it.
And what do you got coming up soon? Are you doing other conferences? You've got the Fringe Festival in Melbourne coming up. What's happening?
Well, yes, I open my brand new show in Melbourne next week for Melbourne Fringe, and I've got a lot of workshops going on as well. A lot of non-for-profit groups find my skill sets useful in the world of entertainment, so I like to do those as well, and that I think that's useful for me. I feel useful. I feel like I've got some utilitarian value when I feel like I'm contributing to not just making people laugh. I'm actually imparting some of my skill set to other people.
And look, let's get some labels going here, because it's all about labels sometimes. How would you describe your style of comedy? I've seen you do great wordplay. I've seen you doing really twisting arounds and funny situations, turning them on their head. How would you describe it for people who haven't seen you before?
I suppose I'm very lyrical and I'm very logical. So if I'm talking about a situation, I'll break the logic down in it and try to explore the ideas behind something. So I think lyrical and logical, they're not really labels, but they're the best adjectives to describe what you'll see when you watch my show.
Okay. Well, look, you get up there, I'll get out of your face. You have a great show tonight, Simon.
Very much appreciated. Cheers.
Well, look, Maynard here reporting for the Skeptic Zone with a few people, and I'm with Brett, who was one of the people that has tried to organise putting this on. Now, basically, tonight you have tried to prove that atheists and skeptics can be party people.
Definitely. Like, the whole, we're not here to have a go at religion tonight. We're here to talk about the positive things that you can experience without religion. Just have a lot of fun otherwise.
Okay. And look, we've got a few of the people here that are going to be here. He's the assistant guy that's been organising this. What are you expecting to have happen tonight?
We're just hoping everyone will have a good time and just get a bit of a laugh out of it, mostly.
Why do you think skeptics get such a bad rap as being nerds?
I suppose skepticism is mostly people interpret it as a negative term, mostly. Like, everyone seeks to discredit any ideas that people might put forward. So, yeah.
Let's have a drink. Oh, hang on. We should think about that first. Is that the problem you think they've got?
It's probably a bit extreme, but yeah, probably something along those lines. Yeah.
And why do you think skeptics get such a bad rap?
I suppose it's just a stereotype, like a lot of stereotypes out there, and once people get an idea in their head, then it's hard to change the view of a lot of people.
And how would you describe the audiences here tonight? What are they like?
Fantastic. Good group of people that are here to have a good time and hopefully get some good entertainment.
And why do you think skeptics get such a bad rap?
Because sunism's so special, and the sun rules the world, and it's a major player in the world's spiritual belief system. And if we all could believe in the sun, there wouldn't be any need for God, because God sucks.
Can I say that even though you seem to have a non-deist way of thinking, the burden of proof is a hell of a lot on you after saying that?
I didn't understand what you said.
Well, the burden of proof. Where's your proof?
Oh, the sun. You look at the sun and you see the proof. If it wasn't there, we wouldn't exist. The sun's the deity of the world.
Now, Martin, tonight's a bit of an atheist blowout skeptical comedy night. Why do you think skeptics get a bit of a bad rap for being party poopers and maybe not that much fun?
I didn't know they did.
Yeah. Well, look. This is in the general community. You say, I'm a skeptic, and they look at you like, what? Is there something you don't like or something? Yeah. And maybe atheists as well get a bit of a rap like that,
Yeah, look, I don't know. Like, I'm a Christian, so we get that rap too. So maybe that's something we got in common.
Well, maybe there's common stereotypes of both sorts.
Yeah, that could be right. Yeah.
Actually, could you tell me what your favourite book of the Bible is? Because I like having a chat.
Oh, mate, look, they're all good. Maybe I'll go with Romans. It sets out what Christians believe so clearly. Yeah.
And do you often mix with the atheists and have a bit of a chat with them?
Yeah, we've got a really good relationship. There's a bunch of us Christians who tend to come to events the Atheist Society puts on, and likewise they come along to some of ours and we catch up and talk, so we've got a good relationship.
This is so cool, because I've spoken to Brett about you guys doing this, and it's great to actually meet one of the guys, because I think it's great to engage and discuss what you think and what you think about and what the other person thinks. And do you find that a good thing as a Christian?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, I think we need to... I think one thing we do have in common is we're both interested in the question about what life's all about, and so we can engage in a discussion about the big questions in life, and I think that's important.
And do you think there is any main common ground between atheists and theists that's a general common ground?
I can say two things of common ground. I think a lot of the people I talk to in the Atheist Society have a similar view of truth to Christians, in that they believe there is absolute truth and that we can find it through searching. Secondly, I think another point of common ground is that a lot of guys in the Atheist Society are interested in the question, whereas I think maybe there are many people, students at uni or just in society in general, who are quite apathetic about even asking what are we here for, what's life about, and yeah. So,
well, I think it's time. The laugh's about having some laughs tonight, so enjoy yourself, sir.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Please welcome to the stage, Matt B.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Matty B. Part-time comedian, full-time taxidermy enthusiast. It's nice to be here. I actually have this little ambition in comedy to walk out onto the stage and ask the crowd how they're going, and have everyone reply just in unison, "Matty, we're going great. In fact, we're having such a good night that afterwards we're all going to chip in and construct a 12-foot origami funny bone in commemoration of tonight's proceedings." I didn't even hear that, but I'm going to assume it's funny.
Well done! You're going to love him! Let's everyone make welcome Simon Taylor!
Brett Evans, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Brett. Thank you very much. All right. Hello, Newcastle.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Oh, you
you represent Newcastle. Lovely. Your ambassador is right up the front. Good to see you. Hello, you're excited. I'm going to silence you with my love. Good to see you. Hello, everyone. This is nice. Thank you for having me. I've got such a good feeling about this. I've got such a good feeling in my uterus right now. We're going to have a wonderful, wonderful night. I've been travelling a lot. Actually, I'm pleased to be in Newcastle. I've been doing cruise ships around Australia. I was on the Princess Dawn. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? The Princess Dawn. Luxury cruise ship that takes you to strange and exotic places like Perth. I get to Perth, they say, just remember Perth is 3 hours behind Melbourne. I go, 3 hours. I think you're being generous by about 10 years. But I travelled. I got to go to some great places when I was touring some of this stuff around. I got to go to Singapore. Anyone been to Singapore? Just give me a woo. Oh wow, Singapore fans in the house. I went to a nightclub in Singapore and I got culture shock because inside the nightclub there were 50-year-old men with 21-year-old girlfriends. And I just thought to myself, man, I'm 23. If I want to fit in, I have to find a girl who's -8. But I'm appreciating it. Is everyone from Newcastle? Give us a whoop if you're from Newcastle, born and raised. Yeah, a lot of Newcastle people. Give us a whoop if you're not from Newcastle. Oh wow, okay. Oh wow, outnumbered Newcastle people. I've only been here today, but so far I can say I love Newcastle. I love it so much, I do. Like if Newcastle were a piece of chocolate cake, I would stuff my face with it. If Newcastle were a gallant steed, I'd ride that bad boy into the sunset. If Newcastle were a sexy lady, I would respect her. Because I studied feminism.
Hey, bro.
Oh, hey, bro. What's up?
Check it out. Finally, a Back to the Future invention that has come into existence. I present to you the hoverboard.
Dude, that's a BS band skateboard deck from the Eshy Skateboards.
Yes, a skateboard without wheels.
Yeah, you're supposed to buy your own wheels and bolt them on.
And look, it has a placebo band right here in the packaging. That must be what powers it.
What are you on about?
That's right, your very own hoverboard. And SkepticBros.com has one to give away. Go to SkepticBros.com and click on the comp tab for more details.
You know that's a skateboard deck, right? Not a hoverboard. It doesn't actually fly.
You go get the car. I'll get my Michael J on, hold onto the bumper, and float down the freeway.
Sure, why not? That could be fun.
Now it's time for Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachel Dunlop.
Hello listeners and welcome to another episode of Dr. Rachie Reports. Well, I know that I bang on a lot about the TGA, but recently I received another reason to be eternally frustrated with the Australian Drug Regulator. I came across an article from Australian Doctor which described how a complaint against the makers of Nurofen, which is a popular painkiller in Australia, were directed to stop claiming their product could go to the site of pain. Now, this is because they currently have ads on television that make this claim. And according to the article, the makers, Reckitt Australia Proprietary Limited, was ordered by the TGA's Complaints Resolution Panel to withdraw a television advertisement for Nurofen that claimed the product targeted relief from pain and goes straight to the source of pain. However, in a statement from Reckitt Benckiser, they said they did not agree with a number of the sanctions imposed by the TGA panel and therefore, quote, Nurofen advises that consumers will continue to see the familiar branding of the Nurofen target and messages of Nurofen working at the site of pain. Sigh. So, of course, Reckitt Benckiser are by no means the first company to essentially flip the bird and say, get stuffed, we'll do what we want to the TGA. Indeed, today's statement follows a damning audit of the TGA's management of complementary and alternative therapies, which was released recently. And it essentially described the TGA as having no teeth to enforce rulings against companies who do the wrong thing. Now, the audit came after a review of a random sample of listed products, listed meaning supplements, vitamins, homeopathic preparations, and other products classified as low risk, including, by the way, 31 types of ear candles. Yay! Now, this review found over 90% of products breached the TGA guidelines, and the review was done in 2009-2010. Now, the one prior to that found that over 75% of products breached TGA guidelines. So in the last 5 years, there has been consistently high levels of non-compliance with the rules of the TGA. So let's look a little bit closer at the products that recently failed the review. Out of 31 that were randomly selected, 22 were found to have manufacturing and or quality issues, 20 had labelling issues or breaches which may mislead consumers, and 14 did not have adequate evidence to substantiate claims made about the products. So with respect to consumer protection, this is a pretty bad result for the TGA. So as a result of these failures, a significant number of products were removed from the Australian government's list of therapeutic goods. Now, it is worth noting in this case, however, that Nurofen is not a listed drug, it is a registered drug. So stricter rules apply when it comes to the regulation of what's in it and whether it works. However, advertising laws for L&R drugs are essentially the same. Basically, you can't make claims which you can't substantiate, and if you do, the TGA can order you to remove them. Now, whether this be from a website, which has happened several times now for Homeopathy Plus, or a television commercial, as is the case here with Nurofen. Now, once a complaint about a product is received, and by the way, the TGA relies on consumers to make complaints, as they are not proactively seeking products which breach guidelines, and if the complaint is upheld, the company will be directed to remove the offending material and or publish a disclaimer. But it's not news to regular listeners of Dr. Rachie Reports that for some time now companies have been ignoring these directives. Indeed, approximately 30% of companies do, and they can because the TGA has never, in its history, enforced them. Ever. Here's what the audit had to say about this. Due to the very low financial penalties currently available, a maximum of $6,600 for individuals and $33,000 for corporations, for advertising offences in the Act and other investigative priorities for the TGA, it is not cost-effective for the TGA to initiate a formal investigation of an advertising breach with a view to preparing a brief for evidence for consideration of prosecution by the Director of Prosecution. It has never been cost-effective for the TGA to initiate a formal investigation of an advertising breach with a view to preparing a brief of evidence. So, in other words, the cost of prosecuting a company outweighs the fine, so it's not worth it and it's never been done. This, of course, makes the TGA the laughingstock of drug manufacturers. If you read between the lines of the Nurofen press release, you can see it loud and clear. Let me remind you what it said. Nurofen advises that consumers will continue to see the familiar branding of the Nurofen target and messages of Nurofen working at the site of pain. Well, of course they will. I mean, $33,000 is a pittance for a large pharma company anyway. It's laughable to think this would be a deterrent to making some claims that might not be quite right, but sound pretty good in marketing terms. To go back to the TGA's findings about Reckitt Benckiser, the Complaints Resolution Panel found that, quote, reasonable consumers would conclude that the active components of the product travelled specifically to areas of the body affected by pain. In this instance, the part of the head affected by a headache. And I think this is a fair call. But this is not how painkillers work, and to say they are targeted is just nonsense. Yet this is not the first time Nurofen has been called out for shonky advertising. Indeed, last year they were honoured with a 2010 Shonky Award from Choice magazine for a very similar thing. From the Choice website. Nurofen has a range of caplets for migraine, back, tension headache and period pain. Yet a closer look at the ingredients shows they're identical from product to product. So does the back pain version somehow magically go straight to your back and only your back as soon as you've swallowed it? Could you, say, choose to treat only your back pain while keeping your headache? The answers are no, no, and definitely no. But sadly, as long as the TGA has no teeth to enforce dodgy claims and advertising breaches, I expect we'll see this type of behaviour continue. And even if they were to fine companies for breaches, $33,000 or $6,600 is a pittance to most drug companies, whether CAM or science-based. There seems little deterrent to stop when there's money to be made and no one's gonna stop you anyway. In my opinion, this is about consumer protection, and if the TGA fails to do that, then I wonder what good they're doing at all. You can find the blog related to this post on skepticsbook.com called The TGA Gets Flipped the Bird Again. And just a reminder that I was a guest on Science on Top podcast hosted by Lucas Randall last week. We talked about BMAA, ALS, MND and fruit bats, amongst other things. Check it out on iTunes if you'd like to hear it. And until next time, this has been Dr. Rachie Reports.
Dr. Rachel Dunlop is one of Australia's foremost media commentators in matters concerning so-called alternative medicine. She has appeared on national radio and national television. Dr. Rachie is available for interviews, and you can contact her at rachel@skepticzone.tv.
Scopes Monkey Choir.
Scopes Monkey Choir. Wait, are we a choir?
No, we're not a choir, but we are musicians.
We're not monkeys either. Oh, we are primates. So what is Scopes Monkey Choir?
It's a podcast.
Oh yeah, it's a podcast.
It's the podcast where music and sound meet science and skepticism.
We are two professional musicians who decided to turn our skeptical eyes on our own profession. We look at the science of music.
We look at studies, recent studies about music and sound.
We look skeptically at musical myths.
We look at... and we dork out about music.
Listen to us at scopesmonkeychoir.com or find us on iTunes. Scopes Monkey Choir.
The podcast where music and sound meet science and skepticism.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. My goodness me, I enjoyed that little cup of ice cream with a Hershey's chocolate. I think I'd enjoy any brand of chocolate, to be honest with you. Oh boy. Yes. Now, on next week's show, I hope we have another think tank. In fact, Dr. Rachie and I may well travel up from our part of Sydney to the part of Sydney where Iran Segev and Joe Benamu live and visit a club near their place. Why not? Sounds like it'd be a fun trip. So hopefully we'll get another think tank happening, more reports, more interviews, update on this titanium ion band, NRG, which we mentioned at the top of the show. In fact, the Australian skeptics are putting together an open letter to Rebel Sports to say, what do you think you're playing at? That's something I'll have to look into this week. But until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.